You're listening to the Everyday Legends podcast Moment, a snippet from the full show that is dedicated to championing everyday men and supporting you in getting more from life, from love, and the everyday. I'm your host, Mike Campbell, and the aim of this podcast Moment is simple: to pull a bite-sized snippet of punch from the full episode to support you in building rock-solid foundations, legendary integrity, and kick-ass relationships. So let's get into this moment from the show.
But if you imagine, like, for a second that you did all of that, like you did, your effort as an individual, awesome, but you only got to that position because of all these people you never spoke to, don't know, and never thought about in some respects. And I've been a lone wolf guy. You end up sinking yourself anyway. Like, you'll blow up relationships. Something will happen. The lone wolf thing is a myth, first of all, but you're also missing, well, I've got that many people behind me. I'm telling myself this story that I need to do it on my own, and I'm doing it on my own. It's like, you're missing the beauty. Like, I tear up regularly thinking about Barry. Like, I'm like, man, that guy had my back when I was little. Just because he's just such a great person. And like, I got to live this life because of Barry and Pat. Like, I get inspired by that. Why would you lose that for yourself, you know? And you may have had bad teachers, but you probably had some ones that did care about you and did give a shit, or a coach, or there were people in your life, man. And then if you can't see them, and if you had like a really one of those lives where there didn't seem like there's many people around, someone came for you somewhere, probably. And if you're in an environment where when you worked it out yourself, like, you could still thrive, you know, which is not the case everywhere in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And regardless, you also always get to tap into that now.
Yeah. You can tap back into it, you know, and it can still be, it's like a wind at your back. You're like, oh man, all these people, all this way, did all that stuff for me to be able to even consider this right now. Like, it's a pretty beautiful thing to think about. And, you know, it's been sad for me the last 2-3 years we've been so focused on ourselves as individuals and in our experience. It's hard to see, wow, so many like people in health are risking themselves every day to keep all of us safe. Like, we turn it all into numbers and this and that. It's like, I saw we live at Bondi, and there's a big like where you go get the tests, the swabs or whatever. There's just nurses there all day, every day. Like, they got really high level training, taking swabs, making sure we're safe. And I'm like, they were there on Christmas. They were there like on the weekend, just nonstop for the past 2 years, trying to help us all out, you know, and you could not notice that. And I think a lot of us missed it. It's like a whole huge part of society mobilizing to keep us safe. You can get upset at the government and all these different things, but it's like, are you noticing the levels of like protection you have here in this country? It's like, you know, it's a thing to see fully.
Yeah, I love that, because straight away it's an invitation to gratitude, to compassion, you know, and potentially to like curiosity of like, okay, well, how yes, okay, they're being paid and that's their job, but one, they don't have to do that job, and we don't necessarily remunerate them and thank them that well. But like, could I be bringing that energy, let's say, right, the keeping people safe, the looking after, even if it is in your work or some kind of vocation, how can I bring that energy into the world, into the community? You know, like, I get this idea a lot where guys are really looking for purpose. I got to connect into purpose. You know, it's like, I've got to have this one thing that I am here on the planet to do. And it becomes this giant expectation. I know we've spoken about it before in the past, but it's like, it's also such a fucking expectation. Holy shit. But like, maybe we can simplify that down, right? And it's like, it doesn't need to change the world, but it might make an impact in the world around me. And how can I actually bring some of that, you know, and I love this idea of, you know, maybe borrowing from village life in the sense, because it just looks really fucking different now, but we are still in lots of big villages, right? And so how can I actually be a part of that? Because it doesn't matter what I think, I'm always extracting from it, essentially, right? I am benefiting from it.
We really underestimate the power of our personal example and how much that influences people. Like, you could just go to work and be an awesome person, and it influences a lot of people. And you can also think about, like, how do I live some of these principles and values in my work every day? How do we try and, you know, infuse that into the company? What does it look like to wrestle and struggle with that? Because like a lot of organizations, it's very hard to live your values. The wrestle and the struggle is worthwhile. And then the communication of that to others is really powerful. And all of us, even if we don't realize it, have this communication platform that no one ever had before, you know? Like, I can put some stuff up about Fiji and it inspires my friends. I'm not trying to be an influencer. Like, that's not my calling or whatever in the world.
No, but it's also a term that we've kind of lost and bastardized. It has a point, but you are influencing someone, right? And that's the thing. I can't control what someone thinks, but I can certainly have an impact in influencing them.
Well, I think like there's a new type of morality that will form or is forming. Like the last 15 years or 10 years of the internet has been like the adolescent masturbation phase, I think, like where it's like, oh, just do whatever, being the people, ejaculation. Like that's it. That's what the internet's been like. It's a weird, strange place. I think we'll get to a point where we realize, oh, what we do and say has meaning. Like what we decide to share with other people, we have responsibility around, because they might not know or have our level of understanding. And if they like us, like we can influence them. So should I just be sharing some random website where I didn't check any of the stuff? I haven't looked at the sources. Like I think in time, literate people and people that like who have values will start saying, that's not a cool thing to do. Like drink driving is not a cool thing to do. You shouldn't share like rumors and things that you haven't researched, like it's authoritatively true just because you had a reaction to it. We're going to have another level of emotional understanding about how we're being triggered by the internet, and not send stuff because we're triggered. If it feels relevant and timely and that people that you know need that piece of information, by all means share it. But if you've just gone down a rabbit hole and you haven't really learnt what that means, don't share it with people. You have a responsibility not to pass on information viruses. Like you wouldn't go cough COVID on people. And I think at some point we'll start to evolve a new consciousness or set of societal understandings around, I am responsible for what I share. It's not all someone else's fault. It's not, everyone's like, oh, Facebook did. It's like, well, but we shared it. Facebook's just a platform. Like you're sharing the stuff and then getting upset and sharing it to somebody else, and they're sharing it and you're sending it on a thing. Like that's how it worked. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because what's coming to mind is, you know, like in my own world, you know, like I might be in my relationship, and as humans we're such good meaning makers, right? And so something might happen and then I'll tell myself a story and some of my old insecurities and the shit in my past come up, and it puts the lens in which I view that thing. And then, you know, I tell myself a story that like my wife's pissed off at me or something. We love making a story and we'll pass it on to our behaviors. And then we have this thing called Facebook, and that's also what we're doing, right? Like we're meaning making and we're passing it on to other people, and the ideas spread. And like I was just on a coaching call with some of my guys earlier today where we were talking about this kind of idea, and I was like, here's a really simple circuit breaker question, which is, do I know this to be true?
Yeah.
You know, like if we use this terminology, my villain, but just the shit in your past that has a voice that tries to keep you safe and et cetera. And if it's, you know, saying, oh, they left me, it means I'm no good. You know, do I know this to be true? Well, maybe it's a simple question that we can bring into all sorts of things, maybe like things that we learn on the internet.
Things that we learn, things that we learn.
And like, no, I don't know it's true. Okay. Do I fucking want to do the research to find out that it's true? Maybe I don't. So can I let go of it being a truth?
Yeah. Yeah, totally. It just, and then, you know, there's certain words that need to get reclaimed, like research. Research is not going on the internet. Like that's entertainment at best, you know. There are certain words that they need to get reclaimed, but it's a new technology. We're learning how to use it. Like the same thing happened when we had the printing press. People were like writing crazy pamphlets that like the king was coming to kill everyone and the Jews are out to get them, and they're sticking them under doors. This is a thing. And then societies tore themselves apart until they went, oh, we need to come up with journalism. You know, you're going to put a mark on a piece of paper that lets you know this is from a company that does actual journalism. You can trust that source of information. Now, we've lost some of these things and we lost the tradition, and that's happened. That's true. But I think we'll evolve to the same thing on the internet where it's like, oh, no, you can't trust that random person with a Facebook group. That's not, you shouldn't be sending that. Like, don't send that to your mum. She's going to freak out and hurt herself. Like, it's not a good idea, you know. So
no, you're lame.
We're just in one of those phases.
You have been listening to the Everyday Legends podcast, Moments, a short snippet from the show that is dedicated to championing everyday men and supporting you and getting more from life, love, and the everyday. If you have enjoyed this moment, then the next logical step is to check out the full episode if you haven't. And if you think that you have someone in your life, a man that could benefit from, will enjoy this moment, then pass it on to him. As always, if you like this podcast, then please click subscribe, click download first, all those things that supports us and this podcast getting in front of more men like you. I've been your host, Mike Campbell. Remember, keep building those rock solid foundations, build that legendary integrity, and keep creating those kick-ass relationships.